This is our third series, a free series on the Smart Start Academy and the Smart Start process, but just really about how to up our game on each critical component of the business, on that initial phone call, on building trust, on standing out, on getting the appointment face-to-face. And then how do we rock the hell out of that face-to-face appointment? How do we give people way more than they expected, create the wow and that raving fan that generates more referrals, more business, a more loyal client who's not rate shopping you, and also just real value, that person that's going to think of you 2, 3, and 5 years down the road because you are that valued advisor. So as always, we've got Brendan Donaldson and Michael Anthony on as our leaders on this call. They have developed this process. They live it and work it in their branches every single day. I love teachers that do it, that are top producers, that are making a ton of money doing what they're teaching. This is not theory. This is working in today's environment with an 8% interest rate, right? So,
yes.
Guys, I'm really excited, but I also want to note that, this is a journey to learn this stuff. And we only have 29 people on the call today. I know a lot of people watch a recording, but this is the difference between you and your competitors. The point of the market shift right now, the thing that we all need to know is we have got to be fierce competitors. What do I mean by that? Like, this is a sales job. So in every part of our life, how do we be a fierce competitor? If I'm a mom and I go, what does it mean for me to be a competitive mom? Doesn't mean I'm competing against other moms. I'm competing against my own default. I'm competing against Shayla's average. I'm competing against my default setting that would pull back, that doesn't stay engaged, that isn't present, that is maybe selfish, not for the kids. In business, what is your default? What is your average? What is the level that we sync to? This is not a time where we can sync to average or what we've always done. This is a time where we are being called to find it deep within ourselves, to push out of our comfort zone, to increase and improve upon every aspect of what we do. And this is the part. This is the show. I always say when people come into your office and meet you face to face on your turf, this is the show. This is when they decide whether or not they're working with you. They go, yes, that is my loan officer. If it was a powerful, valuable meeting and that trust, respect was earned in that meeting. So you guys are really passionate about this and worked the Smart Start, and you have a packet. We're going to go over it today. So take it away, Brendan. Thanks for doing this on vacation from New York today.
No worries. It's fall break. Shayla, Benton is emailing you so he can log in and do the controls on the actual visuals. So while we're talking and setting it up, you can see if he can get on. Michael, the earlier today we had the call, and it was really about we had this slogan: you're either a salesman or you're a consultant, or you're a prisoner or the prize. And Michael, give them what we went through this morning that shed light on some of this stuff for you.
Yeah. And sort of going back to what Shayla was saying, talking about upping your game, I think there are so many loan officers out there, that are just, when you think of salesperson, are you just, how much time are you taking with clients? And when the volume is down, right, when lead production is down, I think people tend to take shortcuts. They tend to get things done quicker. They want to get things in the door. They just want to make their next paycheck, right? We're working with realtors that are like, let's just get them a house. They need to pay their mortgage next month. And I think it's a dangerous place to be. And I think a lot of our competitors are in that space right now, that they're not thinking about the client, right? They're not thinking about the whole raving fan experience. They're just worried about how are they going to pay their mortgage and their car payment, right? And just, gosh, my pipeline is this thick, it's not like it was a year ago. And that's that's the prisoner mentality, or that's that salesperson mentality that is not the consultant, right? And we talked earlier today about, hey, what are we doing as true consultants to our clients, right? To show that, hey, look, we're doing things differently than our competitors, right? And I think there's probably a good 80 to 90% of our competitors out there that are just taking shortcuts. They're doing it the quick way. They just want to quote a rate, get a worksheet out there, try to get them under their belt, and get into the closing table as quick as possible. So you can't take the shortcuts, right? What do we do as consultants? What do we do as professionals in our business to make a difference for our clients, right? And this ties really well into what we do through the Smart Start Academy. What we're doing with our Smart Start meeting is professionals take time, right? Professionals ask the right questions. Professionals have tailored solutions, right? We're not just giving people what they think they want. We are the professionals, we're the consultants, and we need to help advise people on what they need. People, you've heard the saying, you don't know what you don't know, right? There's a lot of people out there that are buying homes and getting mortgages. They don't know what they're doing. That's our job, right? And that's where we come into play. And we just had a pretty cool exercise. We just talked about, hey, what are a couple things that we do to, sort of show the professionalism and show people, hey, look, what are we doing in this market? So it was a pretty cool exercise, and it really just got the mindset right of, hey, don't cut corners. Let's do it the right way.
And one of the things was the salesman says, hey, you got my name. How can I help you? Like, how can I help today? And the salesman says, hey, I need to call on every realtor. And the salesman basically relies on people to refer them in any way possible. Like, give out my business card. I don't care. Just get my name out there. So we really it was a fun 40 minutes with getting deep on some stuff that we just don't think about. So one of the things and we'll get started, is Benton on or not on yet, Shayla?
Not yet, but as soon as he gets on, I'll promote him to co-host.
Okay, great. So one of the things that I moved over to the bar area, I was in this lounge and everybody was staring at me. It's a little easier in the bar. So the cool, look at this cool bar here.
Oh, nice.
Really
like a
cool.
woody, kind of neat. So I think the biggest thing is that if we've talked about the setup on the first call, like just the mindset, and then the second call was the setup, getting them to come in to do the all about you. The key now is, like, they're in your office. And I think that if you're seeing that your value face to face, where you can pick up body signals, body language, you can pick up the fact that they showed up. Like, if your other competitor, if a realtor gives out 3 cards and other people are just quoting rates, sending out estimates, sending out, different analytical things without explanation, then if they're in your office, they can see you, they can physically see your awards. I think if you bring them into a physical space, we have circular tables and we have glass boards in every loan officer's office. So one of the reasons we have that, I think a circular table speaks to community and the ability to sit with someone versus like across from an official desk. I've always thought that was like real, like you're going to a car dealership and then you go to the sleazy car sales guy's office and he's sitting on the other side of the desk, and you know what I mean? It's just like, you can't see their feet. You can't, there's just something weird about a blockade. So I like the circle. And then a lot of times in our Smart Starts, we're standing up when we're going through the material. So I think we talked about how to go through the All About You form, correct? Anybody that has any questions, maybe plug them into the chat. If any of the stuff I'm talking about or that Michael has mentioned sounds weird, we can try to re-explain it. But at this point, think of it this way. If you've done all this prep work where you've done the triangle for trust, you've established that you're a consultant, they've come to your office, 50% of the value is established already. Now, I always tell everyone, our Smart Start packet that we'll go through has been developed through like me knowing Joe Stump at By Referral Only, me working at the core for 12 years and coaching hundreds and hundreds of loan officers, me doing little seminars, me meeting financial advisors and kind of mixing it all together, going, hey, what's the best way to uncover the fear? To me, they have fear. And Michael, you know it when you, and Shayla, you know this. that part of where they're afraid about like the payment, they're afraid maybe a little bit about the process. They really don't know what to do with their money. So if you have this moment to capture all of this and establish the fact that you could be the authority for the next 45 minutes, taking notes and doing your pre-qual and setting up your estimate and setting up what I call the process after that, this is where you groove. This is where you're like the person in front of the Formula One race, and it is your track. It's, and as long as you stay in your lane and you do your thing, no one's going to pass you, and you've set the tone for everything from there. So you tell me whenever he's ready. I think the big thing, does anybody have any questions about?
He's ready. He's now ready.
So, Michael, when you're meeting someone and they filled out the All About You and you take them through the All About You, and we're going to role play a first-time home buyer with the Smart Start today. How do you typically start your meeting after you've reviewed the All About You and what they've checked off?
So typically, see what the check boxes, if you remember on the All About You form, are what are you trying to get out of the meeting today? What would you like to learn? So it gives me a really good idea of what I need to make sure that, in 45 minutes from now, they're leaving in the office and they have a thorough understanding of those items, right? So everybody's a little bit different, they have different things they want to learn. But generally, after I go through that whole form, I think it's a little bit, I'll sort of customize it based on the person, right? But if it's a first-time home buyer, I'll generally start with, we could go through the steps, or sometimes you jump in right into the credit report, because a lot of times people are really hyper-focused on the scores and the credit report and things like that, especially if there are any issues with the file. If they're, let's say you have a borrower that has some credit challenges, right? Or maybe, one really high score, two lower scores. Maybe it's because of a collection that hit that's $120 that they probably don't even know about. So sometimes we'll go through that and talk about it, right? So I might start, depending on the customer, a lot of times we'll start with the process or go right into the credit.
Okay. Hey, Benton, will you pull up the Smart Start for first-time home buyers so we can all see it? Great. So this is a packet that we've created, and it's constantly evolving. And some of Shayla's team is using it, some other loan officers, the Atlanta office. So when this is sitting in front of our client, we've already talked them through the All About You. And by the way, on the All About You form, the what's most important to you about working with and choosing a lender. If you guys recall, if that's kind of fuzzy, Shayla, and I think this is the biggest differentiator. If you feel like you've gotten someone into your office and they sit there and they say on the what's most important, lowest rates and fees, by the way, you still hold the Smart Start meeting, but it's a very easy tell where you can say, hey, it looks like you're concerned about rates and fees. And that's where you can open them up. I think if you're a consultant and you start to dive into the relationship with the referring source, you're literally the fact that you're taking the time to meet with them, and I can draw parallel after parallel where I'm like, well, tell me about that. Like, what does that mean to get the lowest rates and fees? How are you going to do that? Who have you talked to? And if you say that like face to face, and Shayla, this, like being a master salesperson, you can pick up so much at that point. And Michael, the same. It's like, they either let their guard down and they go, honestly, we didn't mean to put that in. We just thought that's what everybody says, what's important to them. Like half of the people that put lowest rates and fees, they lower their guard after you punch them in the mouth for a second. They're like, we don't even know what we're talking about. Now, every now and again, you're going to get a Smart Start where someone comes in, and this is great practice for you, where it is all about the rates and fees. And when we get to the mortgage scale section, you can play around with it. I think anybody on this call that's a pseudo professional has known, oh God, I'm getting shopped. There's no way we can quote our rates because some credit union, is giving them the shirt off their back. And I've got to quote at least a full point less than what I'm quoting. Can everybody in the chat box, can you all say, yes, that happens to me? Either just chime in, yes or no. We want this interactive.
Well, let me just pause you really quick because I
Sure.
want you guys to glean the little sales nuggets that you aren't currently doing. It's those questions you're not asking. It's paying attention to the body language that we haven't been paying attention to. It is truly being a ninja as a professional salesperson. So you said what, who, how.
Yeah.
You what, who, how. So if somebody says, I'm looking for the lowest rates and fees, and you said, well, what does that mean?
Yeah. How
And
do
you
you get
literally
that?
pause, you shut up and you smile and you wait for an answer. Most of you are so uncomfortable with a pause. Like you just want to keep talking and hope if you talk a lot more, they'll really, really like you and they won't go into that. You've got to surface what that really means to them. And it means something so different to everybody because maybe they had a bad experience in the past. Maybe it's because they know they're really thin on cash. Maybe it's because their father yelled at them on the way out the door and said, make sure you do this. You have no idea where it's coming from. So you said, what does that mean to you? So if you ask that with genuine curiosity and show that you care about this person, like you have this question and I care about you. What does that mean to you? Ask for more clarification. Number two, well, tell me, who have you talked to about this? What research have you done?
Yeah. What have you done?
Who?
What process did you go through? Yeah.
Yeah. And how are you planning on doing that? Now they might say, well, I'm going to wait a year until I get my credit score to the very top rung because that's when I'm going to get the best rate. And you're like, okay, that's one strategy to do that. My job is to help you look at all the strategies because there's pros and cons to everything. You could wait a year and there's some pros to that. There's also could be some cons to that. So again, this is really helpful that you're sharing with me in the meeting because this is what this is all about, is figuring out what is best for you.
Yeah. And I think when you're in consultant mindset and they're face to face and you now know you've got somebody who's like scrutinizing the fees and the price, the more question, here's one that I always love. If I'm not getting anywhere, Shayla, I always say this, Shayla, we haven't talked about what you do. What line of work are you in? And let's say they say we're in IT sales. And then I'm like, well, okay, just so I'm aware, like, do you have a competitor that's like cheaper than you? And then they'll go, and they'll literally go, oh yeah, we do. And I'm go, do they do better work or worse work than you? And guess what they always say? Worse. And so I say, hey, listen, I'll totally respect this next 45 minutes, Shayla and Galen. I'm going to give you everything I know because you were referred by Nikki or Michael. And here's the deal. I respect the shopper in you, but understand the mortgage business is no different than IT sales. People that give you cheap rates over the phone and don't do what I'm doing right now, there's a train wreck waiting to happen. And especially in this industry right now in Reno, if you guys are looking in 750 to 850, which is kind of what you talked about and what the agent said, that's a vicious market when it's the right price. And we're going to go up against 4 to 5 people. So I want to go through everything you checked on this box and the all about you. And I want to talk at the end about pre-approval and what that looks like if you guys want to work with me. Is that fair? So that's when I get serious, when I know that they're like, okay, put up your dukes. Remember, 7 out of 10 of these meetings, if they're first-time home buyers, Michael, they're always just like ready to learn, right? They're there. It's not a confrontation. Only 1 or 2 out of 10 can be like where you have to be kind of learning what we're talking about right now and feel comfortable doing this. And that's, by the way, it's so much easier when you let go of the result and you no longer care. You just want to teach them and then you want to challenge them. That book, The Challenger Sale, will teach you how to do this. You know more than they do.
Right.
Remember that. Doug Bateman taught me that. He goes, Brendan, if you just say to someone, doesn't it suck that Fannie Mae did this to you with your 680 credit score, that they hit you with these 2 extra points and this terrible PMI? Like you can blame it on Fannie and Freddie.
That's right.
All right. So, all right.
Having a villain that's not us, right?
Yeah.
That this is the government guideline and them understanding that it's not the company I work for, it's the government. We're all playing under these things. And the quicker that they understand that and that it's an even playing field is really important. But again, these are all nuances that have to be said in your pre-approval meeting.
Sure.
And the other thing that you said, and I want you guys to remember, this is another pro sales tip, is because you were referred by so-and-so, I'm going to respect this 45-minute meeting and give you all I got and all the information with hopes that you will work with me and we'll take that next step. But that's totally up to you. I'm going to give you my time and everything that I know anyways. And you guys, that's key, because you were referred by so-and-so. It keeps reminding them, you did just find me on the internet. I'm not just some call center person. You're coming into a professional presentation, and it keeps reiterating. But at the end of the day, you said people have fear.
Yeah.
My family, we're looking at changing wealth advisors. And what's interesting is we have fear. We don't want to be stupid. We don't want to make the wrong choice. And I'm in this industry and very sophisticated, and I have fear as a customer. And so whatever salesperson is going to really pinpoint that fear and bring a solution to me about that fear, that's where we're going to attach our trust.
Well, I'll bet you it's going to be face-to-face, Shayla.
Yes.
Yeah, I bet you. And if they're worth a shit and they're out of state, they'll fly in to see you. And they'll set up a conference room in the Ritz-Carlton in Reno and say, hey, meet me there.
Yeah. Or maybe the Peppermill Casino.
There you go. Hey, Benton. So I think just shifting gears and going through this, what I want to do for the next 10 minutes to 15 minutes is go through quickly just the slides that we prepared in our Smart Start, where we've boiled it down to educating them in the boxes in the All About You. When they check them, here is the initial Home Buying 101. This would be the 12 steps that we've created. That true story. I don't know if you know this, Shayla, but when I left Buy Referral Only Mastery Program in 1999 and I moved to Nashville, Joe Stump and I worked on a home buyer class. It's 52 pages. It's called the Home Buyer Class. And it's a slide, it's a PowerPoint slide that shows the role of the agent, the role of the lender, why get pre-approved, and then like kind of the ABCs. So I had set up about 70% of it. And by the way, like I quit the program and then he charged me for the whole year. True story. And so I owed him like $1,200. It was like $300 a month. And I quit like 4 months early because I wasn't getting much out of it. So he calls me and he says, hey, Brendan, I know you were working on this thing. I had talked to you about it. And he goes, can we work on it together? And then I can use it for realtors and I'll wipe your bill clean. So true story. If these 12 steps were some of the steps that I worked on with Joe and one other agent in 1998, and we've just polished them over time. So when I say these are the 12 steps, could they be more detailed? Sure. But most of the steps of home ownership that anybody reads online, it never talks about like conditions or counter offers or back and forth or renegotiating terms or finalizing loan terms. It's all a bunch of bullshit. So when people read this, I think it's a very thorough, detailed. And by the way, some of the loan officers in my branch, and Michael, maybe some in your branch, literally like they go through this line by line with the client, and it might take 5 minutes. Benton, go to the next slide. A lot of first-time home buyers do not understand renting versus owning. This form, it looks complicated. It is not. I would tell you right now that the thunder of walking someone through the numbers of renting and literally multiplying their rent times 12 and saying, here's what you pay in rent. And by the way, there's no deductions. So that's what it really cost you. And then if you gave them a scenario, one of the keys to a Smart Start that I think is that a lot of people will have already filled out some basic information in the system. Whatever intake form you have, if it's Encompass or whatever, and you've got things preloaded, they've come in, remember, they've checked all these boxes, and the other boxes are, hey, we want to know what our down payment options are. We want to know what, monthly payment. We want to see the numbers. Well, this is before that. This is the very beginning of the meeting. When I have first-time home buyers, I walk them through this. It takes about 10 minutes. And the biggest aha that we figured out in doing this and having done thousands of these is that this, instead of like a total cost analysis, which is pretty technical, and I'll give it credit for being technical and something you can do on the computer. This is not technical. This is actually breaking it down. None of your competitors have ever done this, including you possibly. And when you show a client the tax refund, if you know how to actually calculate it, and you show them the net cost of owning when you take out principal, and you take out the refund if they're getting one above the standard adjustment. This is the eye opener where, let me give you just a scenario. When someone comes in saying, I pay $2,500 in rent, but I don't want to have my mortgage payment more than $3,000, but you know they could qualify up to 4. What I do is reverse engineer owning with whatever potential monies they have. And I've gotten really good. Michael, have you gotten pretty good at just kind of throwing a scenario in front of them without knowing anything about what they're doing?
Yeah, once you do this for, it's just like anything. The more you do it, the more comfortable you get.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty good through osmosis of just looking at their incomes and knowing and asking a couple questions of saying, hey, why don't I just show you a scenario because you rent for $2,500? I'll do a $500,000 purchase price with 10% down with an interest rate of, why don't I put 8% on here? And like, by the way, we haven't even gotten to their pre-qual yet. This is still the pageantry of just answering questions. So once we do this true rent versus own, which by the way, could take you 5 minutes, I said 10. The key is this: when people look at the numbers and the numbers are on a chalkboard or a glass board, or you do this on the physical form, they say one thing only. Michael, what do they say?
Wow.
What are your
I mean, they look at, at first when they see the payment of the mortgage, they're like, oh, so a lot of times they're going to be a little bit, like, a little bit high, right? But once you break it down, it becomes more palatable. That's usually what I find.
Yeah, same here. This is what normally a couple will look at each other, and it's even better when they're like more advanced degreed. It doesn't really matter if they went to college or even graduated high school, because nobody knows how to do this. They'll go, wow, we didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I say this, well, I know I showed you a payment of $3,500 versus your rent of $2,500. Now that I showed you this, does that $3,500 payment scare you? 9 out of 10 times they'll go, no, not really. Now understanding like where it goes, this actually is pretty cool.
Yeah.
And I'm like, good. Then I know, ready, I've broken one barrier to their understanding. And guess what I also know? Ring, ring. Hey, realtor, you know the Johnsons. They said they only wanted to say it $3,000. Well, as soon as they came in, I showed them the rent versus own analysis, and they were comfortable at $3,500, and they could actually get approved for even more. So I'm glad I took the time to bring them in and show them that, because I think we're going to be able to show them up to 500,000 versus like what you were thinking before at like 400 or 450.
And Brendan, I think it's like it's payment conditioning, right? I mean, everybody wants their mortgage to be just above the rent payment. Well, guess what? That doesn't happen in this market. It's 50% more or it's double. So if you can break down that payment and show them where the money's going, right?
Yeah.
And if on the All About You form, if they say they're saving $1,000 a month over and above their 401k, they can now afford a higher mortgage payment because they see that their principal reduction, which is going towards building their net worth, is $900 a month, right? That's forced savings. It's the same, it's a balance sheet asset, right? It's the same asset. It's on the balance sheet asset side. It's just in your home versus the market. So it's payment conditioning.
Michael, you're a total ninja, because when we look at the All About You and we start to see, because we added how much are you saving and how much are you putting into your 401k, you can very quickly, when you guys get good at Smart Starts and good at this with first-time homebuyers, you literally feel like a math professor that's about to show them like abracadabra, because you can talk them through. You literally can talk them through like, hey guys, do you even know what's in your 401k? Guess what they'll say? We don't. I'll say this, is your company matching it? And they'll say, yeah, it's like a 2% match. I can say, well, hey, I just showed you something where if you wanted to invest in real estate instead of a 401k, and I'm not advocating you stop that, but if you did that, you realize you wouldn't have any payment shock. And sometimes they're like, oh my God, we didn't even think about that. Speaking of which, sidebar, I meet with one of my financial advisors every Friday at an hour before this call. And it dawned on him about 2 years ago that in watching the Smart Start, he said, if you don't actually say that, you're dumb as a loan officer, because that gets people thinking, hey, I really am investing in real estate. Because what people think in their 401k, I'm investing in the stock market. But when you ask them their balance, they don't even know. So if you said, why would you invest in something you have no clue? Why don't we stop taking out $500 a month from your company paycheck and put that into real estate to hit that payment of $3,500 if that makes you uncomfortable? Now, I feel pretty confident doing that, but I also have 2 financial planners and I've got money invested and I could say that confidently. I'm not going to tell you guys exactly how to present that, but Michael's a ninja when he's talking about looking at the all about you and seeing what they're saving and knowing that when we're doing this form, this true rent versus own, that there's wiggle room and there's explanation. Benton, go to the next.
By the
Go
way,
ahead.
hold on.
Sure.
Because ultimately I've been talking a lot about fanatical prospecting, and I'm always talking about fanatical prospecting means that you're excellent at prospecting. You're excellent in the meeting of finding those little nuggets, of finding those little avenues, and then being able to articulate your strength in doing so. So Michael becomes an invaluable referral partner to a realtor or a financial advisor when he can articulate, like, I put people through this process, and because I have this process and I learn this and I learn this and I learn this, I can challenge their way of thinking. I can expand their knowledge. I can give them solutions that they never would have thought of before. But that's because I have a process and this is what I do. Case in point, last week, I had a client who wouldn't go over $3,000 budget with their realtor. The realtor's really frustrated, can't find him a house. Well, they come in and do my Smart Start meeting and we see how much they're saving and we look at their 401k. And all of a sudden they are comfortable at $3,500 a month. That realtor can now show them a $500,000 purchase price. My question to all of us is, are we having those examples when we meet with a realtor where they go, oh, you're different. You're not just like every other loan officer that's going to just take a pre-qual and pre-approval. You're going to, find those solutions for the borrower and be different. The other question I have for you, Brendan and Benton, is as we follow up, I'm not sure what resources you're willing to share with the group at this packet or what have you, but I'm wondering if you have a fully filled out rent versus own, so that everybody could see how you did the math. And then they can work backwards and practice. If you aren't role playing, do you guys remember when you first became a loan officer and it was like, go call 5 of your friends and take a 1003 over the phone? Mm-hmm. Just call them and ask them if they will do a loan application with you. Now, do you follow the 1003? Do you say, hey, Michael, it's Shayla. Nice to meet you. So happy you referred to me. Now, what's your social? What's your birthday? No, that's not the first and second question. And you learn that pretty quickly where you go, oh, actually, that's going to be the last question I ask because I've already built rapport. I've softened the soil. I've talked about things that are easy to answer the questions to. Is not going to feel like I'm reading them the riot act. This is the same thing, which is how can we articulate this stuff? And if we're not practicing and we're not sitting down and doing an all about you form 5 or 6 times, we're not going to bring it into our meetings. I promise you that, because you guys are not going to want to look stupid in front of a real client sitting at your desk.
Yeah.
So I challenge you all to take a blank one and to take an example and then pretend with 3 or 4 different scenarios and clients and do them until you're really, really good and comfortable with them.
Yeah, this is great advice. Hey, Benton, can you scroll to the LO notes page real quick? And then we'll go back to this because I want to show you guys something, just so you guys are aware of how I do it.
The loan officer notes page.
Yeah, the credit and income and assets page.
Oh, on the Smart Start.
Yeah.
Like this?
No. The one that I take notes on, the loan officer notes page, the one that I keep. This is their packet.
I don't have that prepared. I'm sorry.
Okay, well, look for it in a minute.
Yeah.
So guys, when I sit down, I have the all about you on a clipboard that I'm looking at. And then I have another piece of paper that says loan officer notes from Smart Start meeting at the top. And then there's a blank for their credit score. And then there's a credit piece, there's an income piece, and there's an asset piece. And these are just notes during the meeting. And then there's a follow-up homework for loan officer and follow-up homework for client. So that's what it looks like right there.
Yeah.
So zoom in on that. So I have that sitting and I'm taking notes. Any point in time there's a question around, hey, what do you rent for? I put it in that box in the upper right where the house is. And if they're like, if we already know their credit scores or pretend, because I think every Smart Start meeting is a little different. If someone's not ready or they don't authorize you to pull credit, you can say, hey, what are your, if and when we pull your credit, what are your scores? What do they look like? People talk about it. They know, they're on their bank statements. So this is where I'm taking notes like a doctor in an initial diagnosis meeting around credit, income, assets, areas of interest, and then the bottom. So now go back to the Smart Start packet where we were at that. So understand this, if I've spent 5 to 10 minutes of them in the lobby filling out the all about you, I spend 5 to 10 minutes going through it. We're at the 20-minute mark. I spend 3 minutes doing the 12 steps of the process. I spent 5 to 10 minutes on rent versus own. I'm 35 minutes into a meeting where I've uncovered a lot of nuggets about them. Then maybe I already know that they make $5,000 each. Maybe I already know that they've only got a $200 car payment. Maybe I already know that they've got 10,000 saved and another 20,000 coming from grandma. So now here's the rest of the Smart Start packet is my setup to close. Michael, you can tell them how you do it if there's something you do a little different. But one of the things that every loan officer back, I don't know, Shayla, if you remember all the times we shared stuff at the core, everybody was like do's and don'ts of a mortgage and like the things to avoid and all this stuff. So we eventually just came up with this page that said, hey, here are the things you need to know when you're getting a loan about your credit, your income, your assets, and special property types. And we added, 3 bullet points. There are times where, guys, I don't even go over this because now I'm starting to go into the pre-qual, digging in because I'm setting up for the mortgage scale. I'm setting up to give them their information. So anytime I think that there's something that we could uncover on this, I'll go through this with clients. The way I go over this in a meeting, I'll say, hey, we're not going to review this today, but I want you to read this piece of paper. If we don't move forward with pre-approval or pre-qualification, I want you to look at this to make sure you don't have any questions, and we'll do a follow-up call to go through any of the things about on this page. Now click to the next one. So understand this.
Or sorry, Brennan, I also have this, just so you know, the actual scale. Yeah.
The actual scale. So I think if I'm taking notes with a client, and like Michael said, there could be something with credit, there could be something with their income, there could be something with their assets that we're writing down and we're doing the pre-qualification. We've got an Encompass file. I sit with my loan officer assistant in the meeting and we have, I have a flat screen TV and a glass board for this whole presentation. I think the number one thing, this is my opinion at this point of a Smart Start meeting. There's 2 options that you have. You either are trying to close them for essentially their business and saying, hey, are you going to work with me when I show you all these details and walk you through this process? Or are you going to become the surgeon that solves their income issue? Mm-hmm. Because let's be honest, if you guys are any good at what you do, 95% of all loan problems stem from one thing and one thing only, 95%. And what is it? Michael Anthony, what is the problem?
Income.
It's and guess what it is? Guess what it is, guys? It's the miscalculation of income at the loan officer, loan assistant, and processor level in your branch. You can try to avoid this, but look in the mirror. When the loan blows up, it was your miscalculation. Why? Your underwriter disagreed with you. Why? Because you didn't know. And guess what? That's where I make this known at this point in the meeting. If their income is straightforward, they're both W-2'd. I go, guys, your income calculation is going to be real easy, but there could be other snags. I want to take the next 24 hours and put together your mortgage scale that looks like this right here. And Benton, go to the one that is the physical one. And ladies and gentlemen, guess what we use for our not disclosure, but how we show clients interest rates? We use Excel. Why do I use Excel? I use Excel because it's the most universally accepted software for financial information in the world. There's no other software that shows numbers better than Excel. And guess what? Everybody has it. You guys have it. So we took this thing that's just called your scale that shows people options, monthly payment options, funds needed for closing. And the most important thing that we show them in their scale, scroll down a little bit, your credit, your income, and your assets, right? No, back up, right there at the bottom. It's page 1. If they don't get page 2, which has all the details that flush to page 1, this is the part where I believe most first-time home buyers, if I showed this to 1,000 loan officers and 100 said, this is way too technical, I could dumb this down to one scenario with 3 clicks of a button, right, Michael? You can make it as simple as you want or complex as you want.
Sure.
But here's the one thing that I think is genius about this. And by the way, I didn't invent it. A buddy of mine did. Here's what I think's genius about it. When we're putting the information on this piece of paper and we're putting the income for qualification, the borrower is getting to see what we're doing. And when they're like, well, wait a minute, why did you only use 5,000? Why didn't you use my bonus? Well, hey, Shayla, sorry, your bonus has only been for 6 months. You have to have it for 2 years. Oh, okay, that makes sense. Hey, well, why did you put $300 for my student loan that's $30,000? I don't make a payment on it. Oh, well, we have to, Shayla, because that's what the rules say. We have to count 1% of your student loan. Well, hey, Brendan, why didn't you put my 401k and my IRA in there? Well, we did, but we, under assets, we didn't put it in liquid assets because you're not going to be using that as part of the transaction. Oh, okay, well, that makes sense. What are these numbers at the bottom? 49%. So, Michael, when we show people these numbers on one page, I think everything clicks. I get very little, guys, I have very little fragmentation from the time I show someone a mortgage scale to ultimately when they're looking at their loan estimate or their final CD in Encompass. I get very little, oh my God, what happened? The numbers changed.
Right.
This is so screwed up. I get very little of that, if any. And if you guys struggle with that, it might be because you're like still using Encompass software, which I'm not going to blame you if you have no other way to disclose or to show numbers up front. But this right here is the meat of the meeting and ultimately what we're selling. We sell them that we're going to give them this mortgage scale in the next 24 to 48 hours because, hey, the most important thing is figuring out the income. So scroll out of this and go back to the Smart Start. So go back to that, the backup one. So when people, I will tell you this, if you're like, well, wait a minute, they're in your meeting, they've come in, remember this, if you've established, if I have 10 Smart Start meetings, there may be 2 of them where we get to the mortgage scale and actually finish the scale right there during the meeting. And the reason why I'll do it in that hour, just so you guys know, is I don't want to be like smoke and mirrors with rates or information. There's just very few times that it's necessary. It might be necessary for a shopper, and it might be necessary for someone who's in an absolute hurry, that's like a reload that's come in from out of town, and you're really needing to get the numbers so that you can see them. Michael, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I'd probably say half the time I probably get through the mortgage scale
Okay.
during the meeting. I mean, it's just, I'd probably say, half the time.
So guys, at this point, my brain has picked up so much body language from this client. I either know they're comfortable with me or not. I know where their payments are going to be. I know that McCain and I can get a mortgage scale to them later that afternoon within 24 hours, like we promised, so that they can see numbers and I can set up a follow-up meeting. Here is what I've decided. And when I left my old bank and joined a new company, I said, hey, one of the rules is I want to be able to charge for my upfront underwrite. And the reason why I want to do that is I don't want to take my processor's pay that costs my branch, and I don't want to take your underwriters and underwrite a loan and really get a commitment letter without a financial commitment from my client. So we figured out that we could do this. I don't know if you can do this, but I do think it's possible. And here's how: you have to disclose. They have to sign the intent to proceed, and you can collect a fee that's non-refundable. Just an FYI, we ran it through lawyers. So this is how we do it.
I verified we can do it too, Brendan. We haven't
That's awesome.
implemented it yet, but you and I have talked a lot about this and the benefits. And
Yeah.
and again, if we're going to be a fierce competitor and
Yeah.
we're going to be a challenger and an advisor, and we're going to like stand behind the value we provide, are we comfortable and confident to charge for it? And that's a really good question about our personal belief in the value we provide to a client, and also the belief in this is going to help you be successful. If you have a fully underwritten approval, this is going to help you be successful. But I think what you and I learned, Brendan, and what changed my whole business is that if I'm going to work, there's got to be two people making a commitment here.
Yeah.
For the first 6 years of my career, I never had anybody come meet with me face to face. I did everything over the phone. I wanted to make it so easy to work with me that I was here till 8 o'clock at night. And I always had this massive amount of follow-up, and I had tons of files on my desk, and I'm responding to 1,000 emails. When I converted to having people sit face to face and going through this, first of all, your education of them understanding their own income and why they qualify for what they do will help them so much more if they're going to talk to anybody else, because they're not going to be gullible and think, oh, well, I could get qualified for more, or, this must be better somewhere else, because you've really taken the time to explain all of that. And then furthermore, if they're not willing to come meet with me and reserve their time and take their time off work and drive across town to meet me, why am I going to spend an hour of my time and make it really easy and
Yeah.
basically train them that all
Yeah.
you have to do is talk to someone on the phone and they just give you all the details. So now I
Right.
can pick up the phone and call 1-800-ROCKET or 1-800 whoever. And it's like, whoever's convenient on the phone that's what we do as lenders. You're basically demonstrating what we do and our value and how you roll. And so this changed for me. I've never once collected a fee up front. But I
Yeah.
think what I started doing is really believing in my value and selling the shit out of it
Right.
to them, so that they
Well-
understood that they could connect the dots and that there was real appreciation for what I was doing. That
Well-
went back to the realtor.
Yeah. And I think you gotta understand, guys, we're doing this nearly 100% of our referrals at my branch and Michael's branch for purchase loans are coming from realtors. Believe it or not, the realtors that love us, they love this. And here's why. It's so easy. Everybody does a pre-qual. People are on first base. Good loan officers do a pre-approval and actually get docs, but it's still a branch level process or decision. People are on second base. What I tell people is, hey, we can leave you on second base and we can do our Shayla, you and Galen are pretty straightforward. Blah, 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 da. We can stay on second base. And I know that you don't really want to do anything until March. Okay, here's my recommendation. I want to touch base with you on December 1st because I know you're a realtor and I know that's when you're going to start looking. I think that's when you should commit for an upfront underwrite. And that's when we would, some people think that there's a cost to this, Shayla. There's not. Technically, if you decide to work with me, we collect a deposit of $495. It's applied to your charges. So you pay nothing extra. It's good for 1 year. The reason why we collect it is we spend a lot of our resources to actually get you approved. You will have a loan commitment letter. Now, what does that mean in the end? It means that we can close faster, just like baseball. That's why we use this analogy. You can score from third base better than you can score from second. Do you have any questions about upfront approval and whether you should do that or not? You could close that way. Hey, Shayla, would you be against doing this? Galen, would you be opposed? Hey, you guys seem open-minded. Which seems logical to you? By the way, I'm just playing with closes right now for you guys. If you ever thought about charging, let me tell you something. As a loan officer, if you go to your boss, I've got 3 Smart Starts this week and I did them all and I got money from all 3 clients and they're all going to make offers in January of next year. You win. And here's the other thing. Don't ever be a loan officer that, if you can implement this, that doesn't actually get the file into underwriting. Get it into underwriting and get an upfront commitment. Like you'll literally have a commitment letter, not this made up napkin pre-approval that you do on Microsoft Word over the weekend while your kid's up at bat, the realtor calls and you're going into your phone software, changing the numbers and going, oh yeah, we'll make this work. By the way, sound familiar with your fake pre-approvals? Hey, guess why I know this is true? I do it too. I'm full of shit sometimes. And I go ahead and write the offer. And I don't know what we're going to do. Michael, do you ever do that? And you're like, hey, we'll figure it out. Believe it or not, we do that still. We split.
Yeah.
But Shayla's like, I've never done that.
Oh yeah, no, this is our real world.
Right.
Yeah.
It's funny. I was talking to Shayla. It was a mirror, and we were talking about like the realness of being in it. And when you're at the level that we're at, and we're trying to help you guys, like don't ever forget until the day I retire, I will tell you I do this. Like, and Michael knows it, and Shayla, you know it, you do it. So we're not giving you something that you would step on a stick of dynamite and then blow up your realtor relationship because you're like, hey, I want to start charging people. No, you're giving so much more value.
Right.
Benton, slide to the last page. This is just a team page.
Hey, Brendan, time out real quick. I would make one more comment about like the scale when we're talking about income and expenses and basically the debt ratios.
Go back to the scale.
I run across a lot of people, and I'm sure you guys do too, that they're very well qualified, but they're so afraid of that mortgage payment. You're looking at their back end ratio or front, maybe they're at like an 18-23 at really where they want to be. It's like they could afford so much more, but they're just freaked out about that payment. I think one important thing is to explain to them, so listen, we've done hundreds of loans this year. And I can tell you, my underwriter would look at your loan from an affordability standpoint on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being super conservative and 10 being, hey, you're probably spending more than you should. You're probably about a 2. And they'll look at you and say, oh my gosh, really? Like we thought we were spending too much money. So, that's the interesting part about talking to somebody that sees files every day. You're actually buying well under your means. And we understand you have other expenses. That's why we look at a fraction of your income. So I think it makes them feel good about stretching their budget, especially if the ratios are super low. So I think it's an important point to make.
And that's Michael, when you show them, pretend back to the beginning of what we were talking today. Let's say I showed them their real target was 450, but their true mortgage scale, they could go up to 650 with 5% down. When you show 450, 500, 550, 600, and you show them 5% down options, and there's a lot of information on that page and they see it, and then they see the ratios going up to 45 from 25 or whatever you just kind of explained. That's when I think the dots start to connect. And no, it's not too technical. It's their information. They get it. They look at it and they go, hey, this is all my info on one piece of paper. I get it.
2 questions.
Yeah.
So since you're oftentimes preparing the mortgage scale for them within 24 hours, are you then setting another Zoom call to go over that with them?
Well, here's how I try to close. If let's say I realize that getting them into pre-underwriting commitment is not an option, then my brain says, hey, I'm going to put them on second base. I'm going to get them their pre-qualification, pre-approval mortgage scale within the next 24 hours. And how I close on my notes page is I say, Shayla, it looks like we owe you a mortgage scale. And I write it down on the bottom side of that LO notes page. And oh, Galen, you were going to look in to see how much you had in your 401k and whether you could liquidate it for an extra 5%. And we're going to go through these right here. I whipped this out. This is your Smart Start follow-up. So I'm just going to check these boxes right here of, your timeline is in the next 6 months, and here's the homework. And I'm going to check one of these items over here for documents that you'll need to get. And I'm going to go through this form, which, by the way, Shayla, this form is all of 1 month old. Because
I love it. I haven't seen it. Yeah.
Yeah. What we had figured out was we didn't really have a good second base follow-up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
because
I just give people like a sticky note and set it on top of their.
So this is kind of us saying, hey, how could we improve Smart Start? So one of the things that we want to do, pretend we've got, by the way, we've got 5 minutes left or 3 minutes left. Pretend we're finishing the meeting. We know we need to do a mortgage scale, and we know they're just a pre-approval and their lease is up in April of next year. Well, we can use this form, walk them through everything, and then at the very bottom, zoom into the bottom, Benton. Scroll down. Was this helpful? Hey, I agree to sharing a testimonial about this meeting. I would tell a friend about this process if they were buying. So one of the things that we had said was everybody talks about current client referrals. Well, you can get them when they're not even your client yet. So anybody who sat through this meeting, and pretend it was you and you were a school teacher and your spouse was a nurse or a I don't know, just something, and you didn't know crap about home ownership. And we've just busted your skull wide open for an hour. And we're like, we've told you about upfront commitment and we didn't sell you on it. You feel really good. And then we say, hey, here's our follow-up. And last but not least, can you give us a testimonial on today? Can you, when you get home tonight, because I don't think you didn't know what you didn't know, right, Shayla? And they're going to go, oh my God, we didn't know shit. Well, hey, it would be really helpful if you and Galen could just write about what this Smart Start meeting meant to you. And I would love to use it for a future ad if I could. By the way,
this was so good, by the way. I hope everybody really enjoyed it. Number one, are you able to share these resources? You normally enroll people into Smart Start and give your stuff. How do you want to do that? Because I've asked you to do this for free.
Well, no, I think what we want to do is have the call next Friday, which we're going to show them one more kind of whammy, which is the pathways meeting, which how do you close on your past clients to get them to start referring you and working with you? And I think the key is this material works. And the goal for our Smart Start Academy is to have people who enroll and want to be part of it. You're going to have 3 or 4 upfront, essentially presentations that you can customize and use with all your stuff, and then be part of our, like, the calls are going to go every 2 weeks and we just rotate it. Michael and I just go through basic stuff, and we have people that are using Smart Starts for the first time and their testimonials of how they did it. So the goal is, think of this like if you've ever done jujitsu or like Taekwondo, where everybody like trains together, but you might have a black belt and a white belt, but you're all in the same gym. That's the goal of Smart Start, is that this is ongoing. And if you're wanting material like this and you want, because we've copyrighted the stuff, the key is this. I want to give it out to all of you, but I want you to value, I want you to value this stuff and use it. And if people are spending thousands on like software and all this stuff, this is going to be at a fraction of the cost. So how do we talk about that? We can talk about it on the last call. We can shoot out some information before the last call if they want to start using it.
Why don't you put in the chat an email address? Because if people are like, I'm ready to go and I want this now and I want to rebrand it. Which, by the way, and I'll just finish with this, my team is using this, not to the degree we want to, which is why we're in learning mode, but we took this and rebranded it with our team stuff, right? So it's got the Gifford team on here, and it's got, it's the same thing he had, but we took obviously our colors and our branding and
you took your Canva overlay, which is totally cool.
Exactly. The last question I had is, if it's not a first-time home buyer, do you still show rent versus own, or do you just
we have a move-up buyer packet. It's which takes out the rent versus own and shows their current house. And we're working on a construction loan Smart Start packet right now. Okay. So they're all slightly different. The All About You form is the same, and then the notes and follow-up stuff is very similar. So Shayla, thank you. I think the last call, we're going to kind of recap some of this stuff and maybe even talk about.
Well, listen, the last call is going to be amazing, because how many have been told forever, do a mortgage review with people? And you're like, they've got a rate at 3.5 and rates are at 7.5. What the hell am I going to review with them? There's no refi here. And what you've taught me, Brendan, is to sit down with somebody and say, what are your 5-year and 10-year real estate goals? How do we actually talk to people about building wealth in real estate and what it would be like to help them buy an investment property or buy a home for their kids or buy a second home? It's all built into the packet here. So we'll see you guys next week for the 4th and final series. Thank you so much for doing this on vacation, Brennan. Michael, your insights are just invaluable. This was really good. So many good nuggets here. So thank you,
Thanks.
everyone. Have a great
Thanks,
day.
Shayla. Thanks, everybody. Take care.